love going through all of my clothes in the closet, but sometimes I just get a little bored and I want to mix things up a little bit. So I'm gonna go and see if I can pick out some pieces to try and mash up and put together. What if I do like half of the blazer of these? I think that would be super cool. You know, I'm gonna try and put these together. I love the 2-in-1 sweater shirt look. I'm gonna try and add this shirt to this sweater. I kind of want a pair of earrings to wear with my current outfit. So what I'm going to be working on is kind of mashing up some of my pieces in my closet together. I'm gonna make a really cool blazer. They're super on trend, being half one and half the other. So I'm going to cut these blazers, or stitch rip them, I guess, right down the center, each one, and put them together so they're gonna be split screen. And then I'm going to do more of a horizontal mashup with this collared shirt and this old sweater. But I'm gonna be doing some cool effects to that as well, like adding a cuff and just kind of fun things to mash those up. I'm gonna start with the blazer, and stitch ripper is gonna be my friend in this. So I'm just going to start stitch ripping the back seam of both of my blazers. So excited to split them and then mix them up and put them back together. So just start stitch ripping, and especially around the vent too. Stitch rip that vent stitching and then up the center back seam and on the lining seam as well. And if your lining doesn't have a seam, you'll just cut it in half. So I'm just going to continue stitch ripping up here. And then when I get to the collar, I am going to cut the collar like so, right into the facing. But I'm gonna stitch rip as much as I can. So on this one and on my black blazer, the same, I'm gonna cut up the collar and the facing, but I'm gonna stitch rip first as much as I can on the linings and on the blazer seams. Once your blazer pieces are completely separated, make sure they're also separated at the collar and the facing seams. Then you need to determine which blazer halves you want to work with. I chose this one because it had a nice pocket at the top. Also, check to see if the button fits into the other buttonhole. And if it doesn't, you can just simply get another button or take the button off the other blazer half. It's okay if there's a little separation at the hemline. That's kind of the beauty of this blazer mashup. Now we are going to pin these blazer pieces together on the right side of the fashion fabric as well as the lining, so everything is all nice and neat. You'll want to lay one of the blazers right side up and the other blazer right side down. Pin just the outer shell pieces right sides together, doing your best to match up the collar seams. It's okay if it doesn't totally match up, just as long as the start of the collar and the stop of the hem are relatively the same at the back. I want to actually pin this pressed edge down and sew it at the top, because when they flip to the right side, I'm going to top stitch them close to the seam to close the blazer at the top. When you get to the top of the vent, just pin and sew it to this point right here, and then we can go and stitch that V for the vent afterwards. So just pin to the top of the vent on the outer piece. If there's any slight length adjustments at the back of the vent, like you can see on my blazer here, which is a bit longer on the black side, it's totally okay, because again, that's the beauty of just putting two different blazers together for that mixed mash look. But you can also adjust this so the seams sew together at this point right here at the top of the vent. Flip your collar and facing so you can pin the lining right sides together. In order to get the bottom, you might need to stitch rip your hem away from the blazer, and we will just reattach it at the end. I'm just going to stitch rip my hem, so separating my lining from my blazer just a little bit more, so we can actually pull the blazer through that tunnel. Just again, stitching it, ripping it a little more at the bottom. Continue to pin the linings together. Don't worry about recreating the pleat, we'll just have a smaller seam allowance. Now remember, this is just putting two different silhouettes together, so sometimes you just find something fun out while you're doing it. Continue pinning together to the top or the start of the vent. Now I'm going to stitch the lining up to the collar and then stitch the collar on the right side all the way down to the vent. So after you sew both of the blazer seams together, that lining to the facing and the back of the blazers together, we need to press them open to get that nice crisp edge. Now the key to pressing the seam, you're kind of going to have your blazer in a tube. We have a little opening up here for the top collars and then that hem opening, and you'll pull it through that hem opening. So just keep it like this and use a pressing ham. I just have like a sleeve roll right here. So this is really key. And if you don't have one, you can, through your more narrow part of your ironing board, you can insert your blazer through that. But I like to have a little sleeve roll. So I'm just going to insert and just press that allowance open. Now you'll want to start at like a lower heat for the lining side, because sometimes lining can shrivel up. So do a little test patch, maybe on an allowance somewhere, before you go full iron pressing hard down, because it could melt depending on the content, the fiber content of the lining, and you're kind of working with two different linings as well. So just give it a light press all the way up to the top of the collar. Then flip it over to get that back seam as well. You can use that steam on the blazer. Usually blazer fabrics tend to, like wools, really love steam. Now for the fun part, flipping it right side out. I just love it so much so far. Now at the top of the collar, you're going to want to make sure those seam allowances are open and the seam allowances are in, so you can pin, and then we're gonna top stitch them together. So just place a pin right at that top, tucking in the allowances. And then flip it to the bottom and we're going to pin the lining around the vent. So you'll want to make sure the vents are pressed as well. And I might just need to clip into this corner a bit to make sure it's lining a bit more flat, so the under vent can lay. And then, and you know what, if things get a little wonky, you know, we're putting two blazers that are kind of not meant to be together, so it doesn't matter really what it looks like on the inside, as long as the outside is looking nice. Just make sure kind of the edges are covered, and just pin the lining around the vent. So I'm going to pin this one to here and repin that hem here like so. And then this one I'm just going to kind of tuck to the under vent. And you can even go ahead and press more of these allowances to the wrong side. And I'm just going to pin, and then using a hand sewing needle, I'm just going to stitch everything in place. So you don't even need to go back to the sewing machine. I'm just going to do some slip stitches with my hand sewing needle down the vent and the hem, down this vent and the hem, as well as this top piece. I'm going to slip stitch those together right here. So grab your hand sewing needle and get stitching, and then we'll have our final blazer reveal. Boy pets are great hand sewing buddies, but they leave their mark on your garments. Nothing a lint roller won't fix though. So I finished hand sewing. I have my vent right here, and I actually went ahead and did a little vent stitch to hold everything down in place. So everything is nice and neat. Well, relatively neat, but it's secure. From the inside, lots of hand stitching, and my collar is nicely together, and I have my blazer. And now what you can do, if you have kind of one funky half and you have kind of one more subtle half, if you want to kind of transfer one kind of style to the other, you can even do some embellishing on the lapel. So I'm just gonna see what kind of beads and trinkets I have before committing. I mean, that's kind of cool. I don't know, I think some studs or something would look awesome. You just don't want to get into that crafty zone, so I might leave it, but if the blazer kind of calls for it, maybe you have kind of two more subtle halves, but they're different, you could get into embellishing the lapels. Let me just see what I have here. Ooh, you even get into some gluing and some tone-on-tone black. Just gonna stick on. I'll just leave it for now, and guess what? After I wear it once or twice, then I can go embellish it. So there we have our blazer mashup. But you have two whole other halves. If they're not distressed, what can you do with them? I don't know. Let's see. You can also sew them together and have friend blazers and give them to one of your kind of funky style friends as well. Now, since that blazer project was so much fun, I want to do one more. And this one, I'm going to do sort of a more wearable one, a project that I'll wear more day to day. So I'm going to take a sweater and an oversized shirt. You can even use a men's shirt. Julian, I hope it's okay that I took this from your closet, even though I found it in mine. I think I took it earlier because it's green. So I'm gonna put these together, and I sketched out an idea because it's oversized. There'll need to be some gathering. So I sketched out this cute little sketch, and we are going to recreate it. It's gonna be super, super easy. So grab that rotary cutter and ruler. We need to cut these two apart. Try on your shirt and establish with pins the length of the sweater portion that you want. Have it line up with the sleeve while you are also wearing it as well. Establish those measurements on the other half of the sweater. Using your ruler and rotary cutter, chop off the sweater. Save the sleeve bits for a cuff later on. Set the sweater aside and grab your collared shirt. Cut the shirt to your desired length. I like to cut it underneath the pocket or the armholes so that I can shorten it later once it's pinned. I'm lining up the cut line with the lines on my cutting mat. If you cut off a button, just pin it in place to hold the plackets together. On the sleeves, measure down that same measurement that you did on your top with a pin mark. I cut perpendicular to the top sleeve line. Repeat for the other sleeve. You could even try stitch ripping your pocket and attaching it to the above sweater portion if you want. I might do that later if I feel like it. Button the cuffs and cut away. Along the tops of both of your sleeve pieces and your shirt piece, stitch 2 rows of basting stitches. Make sure to leave long bobbin tails for gathering. I'm only going to do 1 row of basting stitches on my sleeve though. While you are at the sewing machine, you can just sew together the bottom of the slit on the sleeve. Okay, so we have our basting stitches in place, and now we need to gather it in to fit the top of our sweater. Now here's the most important decision that you'll make in this project. Do you want the buttons on the front? You could obviously know what I want. Or you can switch it and actually have like a button up back. So that's up to you. I'm thinking I want mine buttoned up in the front so I can have it kind of unbuttoned if I'm wearing high waist pants. Yeah, I think I'm gonna keep the buttons in the front. So what I'm going to do is start to gather. But what's really important is that you're matching your center front. So I'm going to just kind of fold my sweater in half to just locate the center front and just mark it with a pin so I know where to pin this inside. So I always like to pin my landmarks first and then gather it up. So I have my waistline seam all gathered in, and I'm just going to repeat that same process for each of my sleeves. Oh, Julian, do you know how to gather? Maybe I should teach you. I should teach you how to hand sew and how to gather, because I don't like doing either of those things, but I do like the effects. For the sleeves, just make sure you're matching up the sleeve seam of the shirt with the sleeve seam of the sweater. Back to gathering. So lastly, before I stitch everything up and then I'm done, I just need to cut my cuffs, and I'm just gonna serge them in place. I'm not even gonna sew them before. I'm gonna stretch and serge so it kind of gathers it in anyway. And so with the rest of the sleeves, I'm just going to cut off kind of the already sewn allowance, and then I'm going to cut 6-inch wide panels for about a 3-inch wide cuff. So I'm just going to fold them like this, and then I'm just gonna put them on my serger. So when I sew this and serge, I can just serge the cuffs all together. So just like that, and stretch and serge them in. And here is the final top. Do you like it, Julian? Do you like this shirt better with this, or did you like it when you had it? Oh, he wishes he had it back now because it looks so good. But I really like how it turned out. I can roll up the sleeves, the cuffs really brought those edges in, and why I wanted the buttons in the front actually is so I can unbutton and then actually tie it. So this is what I was thinking. Style it kind of different, and I love this. Oh yeah, totally a different look. So that's one option if you want to have the buttons in the front. And I brought this pocket just in case I wanted to top stitch it on, but I don't know, just like the blazer, I think I'll wear it a couple times without the pocket, then I'll keep it, and for a little upcycle of this top, even I can just add it. And I also have a belt here. I just wanted to try it belted. You never know. See how that looks. Kind of different, kind of cute, but still, I just love this top. I took an old sweater I never wear and turned it into a sweater shirt combo. Hope you had fun learning how to mash up your wardrobe.